There's something I've noticed about people who desperately want to become wealthy. They almost never do, not because they lack intelligence, not because opportunity passed them by, not because the market was unkind. It's something quieter than all of that, something that took me decades to understand properly. And I suspect most people will spend their entire financial lives never quite seeing it. So let me try to explain it to you the way I wish someone had explained it to me when I was 19 years old. Sitting in a library in Omaha with $65 in my pocket and an absolute certainty that I understood things I did not yet understand. I bought my first stock at 11 years old. 3 shares of Citi's Service Preferred. I paid $38 a share. Within weeks, it dropped to 27. I watched that number every single day. I checked obsessively. I felt the specific, quiet misery that comes from watching something you believed in move in the wrong direction. Then it recovered. It climbed back to $40. I sold immediately, relieved, proud of myself even. It then went to $200. Now most people hear that story and think the lesson is about patience. Hold longer. Don't sell too soon. And yes, that is part of it. But the deeper lesson, the one I carried with me for the next 70 years, was about what I was actually doing when I bought that stock. I was not investing. I was managing anxiety. I was trying to feel better about money. I was watching a number on a page the way a nervous person watches the door. And the moment that number gave me permission to relax, I left. I didn't leave because of logic. I left because the discomfort had passed. That is not investing. That is emotional self-regulation dressed up in financial clothing. And the majority of what people call investing today is exactly that. Let me tell you about a principle that I consider more valuable than any stock screen, any valuation model, any ratio I have ever used. I call it the difference between building and hunting. Most people approach markets like hunters. They are looking for the kill. They scan. They move quickly. They are alert to signals. They want to strike before someone else does. And when they catch something, when a stock moves up 15% in a week, they feel the satisfaction of the hunt. They got it. They won. The problem is that markets are not forests, and the prey does not stay dead. Hunters in financial markets spend enormous energy, generate enormous activity, and very often end up with less than if they had simply planted something and walked away. I know because I was a hunter once. In my early years, I was buying and selling constantly. Graham had taught me to find cigarette butts, cheap, beaten-down companies with one puff of value left. You buy them, you take that last puff, you move on. It works. It's even intellectually satisfying in a strange way, but it is exhausting, and it does not scale. There are only so many cigarette butts in the world, and you have to keep moving. Then something shifted. Charlie Munger, who I have described as the person most responsible for my actual financial results, though he still seems slightly annoyed when I say so. Charlie began nudging me in a different direction. He kept returning to the same idea, that a truly wonderful business bought at a fair price was worth infinitely more than a mediocre business bought cheap. I resisted this longer than I should have. Graham's influence ran deep. But eventually the evidence piled up and I stopped arguing with it. In 1972, we purchased See's Candies for $25 million. By nearly every traditional metric I had used up to that point, it was not a cheap purchase. The business had tangible assets worth about $8 million. I was paying 3 times book value. That would have horrified the younger version of me. But See's had something that does not appear on a balance sheet. People in California had given See's candy as a gift for decades. It meant something. When a box of See's showed up on a holiday, there was an emotional response attached to it that had nothing to do with the chocolate itself and everything to do with what giving it communicated. You could not put a number on that easily, but you could observe what happened when we raised prices. People kept buying. Every year we raised prices a little. Every year the demand barely flinched. Over the decades, See's generated more than $2 billion in pre-tax earnings on that original $25 million investment. It required almost no additional capital. It just kept producing. That is what a builder does. You find something with genuine, durable value. You support it. You leave it alone. And time does the rest. Now here is where I want to spend some time, because this is the part most people skip over. They hear the See's Candies story. They hear about Coca-Cola, which we bought in 1988 and still hold. They hear about American Express, which we held through a crisis in the 1960s when the company was caught up in a salad oil scandal and the stock dropped precipitously, and rather than running away, we put 40% of our entire partnership into it because the underlying business was intact. They hear all of this and they think the lesson is buy good companies and hold them. And they are right, but they are right the way someone is right when they say the lesson of a marathon is to keep running. Technically accurate, practically useless without understanding the thing underneath it. The thing underneath it is this: you have to genuinely not need the money to do any of this correctly. Not financially, I mean psychologically. When I put 40% of the partnership into American Express in 1964, the people whose money I was managing did not panic, largely because I did not panic, and partly because I had spent years building a relationship of trust with them. But the deeper reason I did not panic was that I had done the work. I understood what American Express actually was. I understood that the scandal, while embarrassing and expensive, had not destroyed the fundamental reason people used the company's travelers' checks and charge cards. When you truly understand what you own, the price movement becomes almost irrelevant noise. It is like standing in a building you designed and built yourself while someone outside is shouting that the building looks unstable. You have the blueprints. You walked every floor. You know what the structure is made of. Most people are standing in a building someone else described to them on the internet. When the shouting starts, they have no choice but to run. And this brings me to what I believe is the central psychological failure of modern financial behavior. People believe they are making financial decisions. They are almost never making financial decisions. They are making social decisions and calling them financial. They buy something because someone they respect bought it. They sell because the general mood turned dark and they did not want to feel foolish for holding on. They diversify not because diversification fits their knowledge and situation, but because it feels safer to be wrong in a crowd than right alone. I have watched this across market crashes, bull runs, bubbles, panics. 1973 and 1974, the market fell nearly 50%. 1987, the dot-com unwinding. 2008, when I was writing a letter to shareholders explaining that we would likely see some of the most extraordinary buying opportunities in a generation, while the prevailing message everywhere else was that the financial system as we knew it might not survive. In every single one of those moments, the people who lost the most were not the ones who lacked information. They were the ones who could not tolerate sitting still while the temperature in the room kept rising. Comfort is the real currency most investors are trading in, and comfort is very, very expensive. I want to offer you something concrete before I finish. One question, just one. When you look at whatever you currently own, whether it is a stock, a small business, an index fund, a piece of property, ask yourself this: if the market closed tomorrow and you could not see the price for 10 years, would you be comfortable owning it? Not excited, not certain, not guaranteed. Comfortable. If the answer is no, the problem is almost never the asset. The problem is that you do not understand it well enough, or you bought it for a reason that has nothing to do with its actual underlying value. And if that is the case, no amount of monitoring the price will fix it. Checking a stock price when you do not understand the business is like checking the weather in a city you are not visiting. It fills time. It creates the sensation of doing something, but it moves you no closer to where you are trying to go. I am now in my 90s. I have made errors that when I add them up honestly are genuinely staggering in size. Missed opportunities that would embarrass me if I listed them here. Decisions I made that I understood to be mistakes within months of making them. Companies I overestimated. Industries I misjudged. One airline investment I would prefer not to dwell on. And yet, across all of that, the thing that has mattered most has never been the intelligence of any individual decision. It has been this: I never confused the noise of the market with the reality of the businesses inside it. The market is a voting machine in the short run, as my teacher Ben Graham once said. In the long run, it is a weighing machine. Eventually, weight is what counts. Votes are emotional. Weight is factual. Most people spend their lives trying to collect votes. I was always more interested in weight. That distinction, quietly held and consistently applied, turns out to be worth quite a lot.